What's up, everyone? Welcome to the channel, and today I'm here to give you my full card predictions and betting breakdown for UFC 297. Sorry for the delay. I meant to have this video out by yesterday, but when I filmed it, I didn't have the mic plugged in, so that's my fault. I'm getting the video out today. I did a lot of research on this card. More research than I've probably done for any card, so I think I should have some good picks. Nevertheless, there are some very interesting picks on this card. Let's get into it. Starting out the early prelim, we got Malcolm Gordon versus Jimmy Flick. I'm going with Malcolm Gordon here. I think he gets it done probably by decision here. I think on the feet, he's got a tough style for Jimmy Flick against Charles Johnson and against Alessandro Costa. Jimmy Flick had problems off the back foot, and Malcolm Gordon is going to go in there, and he's going to pressure Jimmy Flick, especially seeing the fact that this is at Canada, his homeland. He might want to go out there and make a statement. I don't know if I see him getting it done by KO. I know Jimmy Flick doesn't have the best chin, but when he fought Charles Johnson, that was an early stoppage. That wasn't one of those scenarios where, oh, fuck, Jimmy Flick's coming off of 2 straight knockout losses. Did he get knocked out against Alessandro Costa? Yes, but even then, it wasn't that brutal. He didn't get flatlined. I don't think he's got the greatest chin. I think a KO is possible on the Malcolm Gordon side, but with that being said, Malcolm Gordon doesn't have the greatest power. I just like him on the feet because he's going to go out there and he is going to pressure. Jimmy Flick will happily get taken down too. If Malcolm Gordon isn't having success on the feet, he has the tools to take Jimmy Flick down. And I know Jimmy Flick has great submissions, and that's why a lot of people are on the side of Jimmy Flick here, because Malcolm Gordon has been submitted twice throughout his career by Amir Albazi and also by Muhammad Mokaev, but I would argue those are 2 very solid grapplers in the flyweight division. And the submission that came from Muhammad Mokaev was almost kind of a buzzer beater, where he fell off the back of Malcolm Gordon and then threw up an armbar on the way down and ended up finding that. It wasn't one of those scenarios that we're likely to see in this fight where, you know, Jimmy Flick's off his back, throwing up an armbar and getting it there. Malcolm Gordon has some pretty solid submission defense. Avoni took the fight down to the ground against Francisco Figueiredo, which is sort of a red flag because Francisco Figueiredo, not a very good striker. He took it down to the ground with the guy that has a submission threat. So a little bit of a low IQ there from Malcolm Gordon, but even then, he was able to control the fight on the ground and stay out of the submissions from Francisco Figueiredo. I think this could look very similar. Jimmy Flick might have the better submissions off of his back, but ultimately, I don't think Malcolm Gordon is that bad, and he showed some pretty solid scrambles against Muhammad Mokaev, and I would argue if Jimmy Flick is shooting takedowns, he probably has the ability to stuff the takedowns or pop back up to the feet, because Muhammad Mokaev had to take this guy down 12 times just because of how often he was popping back up. Granted, he can get controlled and he can get submitted. I'm not super confident in the pick, but on the feet, I do think he's got the tools to put Jimmy Flick off the back foot. And Jimmy Flick does have kind of a weird stance where it's like, it's a regular stance, but then his shoulders are so square. He's very open to getting hit with his hands, but that does leave him a pretty solid ability to throw some nice kicks. I think the best part about his stand-up on the feet is his kicks. They look pretty aesthetically pleasing. He's got a nice looking head kick, pretty nice low kick, body kick as well, but if we're being honest, his hands aren't that good, and he gets hit. I think Malcolm Gordon will land some big shots. There will be some striking, there will be some grappling. Malcolm Gordon will avoid the submissions, and he'll win this by decision, in my opinion. But I can see the Jimmy Flick side. I think he's a pretty solid underdog, but Malcolm Gordon is the pick. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Priscila Cachoeira. I'm going with Jasmine Jasudavicius. She is clearly the better fighter, in my opinion. She's probably the better striker. She's got a pretty solid chin. She is a dog, and she's got some good wrestling. And Priscila Cachoeira, man, she gets taken down a lot. And when she gets taken down, she gets controlled. And she doesn't have a very good ability to pop back up to her feet, scramble back up to the feet, whatever it might be. Once she's down almost for the entire round. She doesn't have the greatest submissions either, but she has great power on the feet. And if this is a striking matchup where Jasmine Jasudavicius is looking for the massive knockout on the feet, she could get caught. I love Priscila, actually, but this fight is actually I think it's at the bantamweight division. I think for whatever reason, Priscila couldn't make weight, so Jasmine was supposed to, she was forced to actually make weight up a weight class in order to make sure that the fight took place on this card. So that is in favor of Priscila Cachoeira. But with that being said, Jasudavicius is probably the better striker. She does get hit, so maybe she gets knocked out, but I think she's going to work in the wrestling early, work in some takedowns, and then probably work in the hands a little bit later. I think this will probably make it to decision. Priscila Cachoeira is pretty durable. I mean, she's got a pretty decent chin, right? But she can get submitted. She recently got submitted by Miranda Maverick. I just can't trust her to stuff the takedowns from Jasmine Jasudavicius or even find the knockout on the feet. But don't rule her out. She's always a pretty good underdog, and she's a very entertaining women's fighter to watch when she is in striking fights. But overall, Jasmine Jasudavicius gets it done for the Canadians in this card, or on this fight card, whatever the fuck it is. Moving on to the next fight of the card, we have Yohan Lainesse versus Sam Patterson. Picking Yohan Lainesse. Sam Patterson may be the more skilled fighter here, but he just got knocked out brutally against Yanel Ashmouz at the lightweight division. Yohan Lainesse hits hard at the welterweight division, and Sam Patterson is super, super hittable. And what is crazy is how he made the lightweight division. Maybe the weight cut really did impact his chin, but nevertheless, I don't trust his striking defense. Yohan Lainesse, probably not the more skilled fighter here. Honestly, he's not that good. But what he can do is he can swing and he can land a big fucking shot. And I think it's simple as this. Yohan Lainesse, first round KO. Sam Patterson, the better grappler, can probably find the submission. I mean, Yohan Lainesse was submitted recently by Malott, but he doesn't have the greatest cardio either. I mean, if this goes past 2 rounds, Sam Patterson probably has the advantage there. Sam Patterson has the advantage with his submissions. When it comes to the wrestling, I think Yohan Lainesse has good enough takedown defense to stuff any takedowns coming his way. I think he overall has like an 80% takedown defense rate. He got taken down by Malott and submitted, but Malott is looking like a pretty solid fighter that will be fighting later on this card against Neil Magny, and I'll get to that prediction. Ultimately, I think he stuffs the takedowns, lands a big shot in round 1, but if this gets past like a round and a half, I think he's really got like a round and a half of cardio, but if it gets past that, Sam Patterson is a pretty good bet here. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Gillian Robertson versus Polyana Viana. I'm going with Gillian Robertson here. I mean, Polyana Viana can find a submission off of her back, but I think she's going to get taken down. And I know they both have a loss to, oh my God, Tabitha Ricci. Tabitha Ricci took them down, both kind of out-grappled them both, right? But I do think Gillian Robertson has a better ability to finish this fight, potentially find a submission. Polyana Viana maybe find something off her back, probably is the better striker here. But I think Gillian Robertson finds a takedown, maybe finds a submission, like I said. And we'll get a 30-27 unanimous decision victory here. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Serhiy versus Ramon Taveras. I was on the Ramon Taveras side early, and I wanted to pick him. It's the fun pick. He's a fun guy to watch. He's got a pretty fun mentality. He's from Duval, Jackson, Florida, something like that. But the dude's got power in his hands, and he's going to go out there and he's going to pressure Serhiy. And he can find the knockout. Here's the thing. Serhiy is super hittable, and that's why I wanted to pick Ramon Taveras in this matchup. But ultimately, Serhiy has some grappling to his game, right? He's got some good submissions. Maybe not the greatest wrestling, but he's got pretty solid wrestling. I think he has an ability to get this fight down to the ground. And now that he has knocked out Ramon Taveras in the first round on the Dana White's Contender Series, he's probably in the head of Ramon Taveras a little bit. But not only that, he just has he's a cemented threat on the feet that can really work well with his takedowns. You know what I'm saying? He can just throw an overhand feint and then just work in a takedown. Find the takedown Ramon Taveras. I think he survives early. He was clipped with some big shots by Ramon, and he wasn't rocked one time. So I do like to see that. Not only that, I was but I was watching some interviews of this guy. And honestly, he seems like a very smart guy. He's like, hey, look, this is a blank slate. I'm not taking anything into this. Like, I'm a little bit more confident now that I beat him before, but I do view him as a very powerful, a very dangerous opponent. And I'm not going to go out there just swinging like a madman because I knocked him out one time. He seems to take this in a very humble approach. I like that. On the regional scene, he's 2-0 in rematches. Not only that, I think there's something else I want to mention here. I think when you compare the regional careers of the two, he's beaten the better opponents. There's a guy named I'm not going to remember the fucking guy's name, but I watched the fight twice. He had 2 fights with the guy, and he beat them both. The second time in the rematches, he seems to do better, but I don't know how he's going to do better than like a first-minute KO, honestly. I think he's going to get this one done by submission. I think he's going to work in the takedowns after establishing the threat on the feet. What I hate about this guy, though, is earlier on in the fight, he's going to throw naked leg kicks where Ramon Taveras has the opportunity to capitalize. But throughout Serhiy's career, he's been able to take big shots without getting rocked. He's got a good knee up the middle, pretty good flying knee. He's got a good front kick. I mean, he's the rangy guy. I'm going to pick him here. And although he looks like he's got a bad chin, I think he can take a pretty decent shot. I think he'll find the takedowns. Round 2 submission is my pick. I can see this going to decision. I can see Ramon getting a first-round knockout. I really am not confident in this, but after watching the interviews of Serhiy, the way that he's approaching this fight, I'm going to pick him here. Moving on to the next fight of the card, we have Charles Jourdain versus Sean Woodson. Another one of those where I was on the underdog side and then I slowly convinced myself out of it. I was watching Sean Woodson versus Juicy J, Julian Erosa. That's who it is. And Charles Jourdain versus Julian Erosa. I think there's a clear game plan to beat Sean Woodson on the feet. And it's not that he's the worst striker. I think Sean Woodson is the better striker, probably the more technical striker, but he's just slow and he's probably not the most durable. Against Luis Saldana, he would have lost that fight had Luis Saldana not fought like an absolute retard. Luis Saldana went out there, landed a beautiful check hook, dropped Sean Woodson on his ass and walked off saying, hey, get back up. I want to continue fighting. And then lands a jab Rocks Sean Woodson down again, probably had another opportunity to finish it and throws a flying knee. Not a flying knee, but just a knee while he's grounded. So that took away a point, and then it was a very sloppy fight after that. It was at elevation, so when I look at Sean Woodson not looking the freshest in round 3, I'm not going to go out there and say he has bad cardio. I don't think that's the case. What I will say is against guys that will trade in the pocket with him with very quick hands, will be very aggressive, like Charles Jourdain has been in the past, I'm going to be picking them over Sean Woodson. Julian Erosa in round 2 had a change in his game plan. Like, he was letting Sean Woodson fight at range a little bit more, struggling with the range. He's like, all right, fuck it. I'm just going to take some shots, and I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to scrap with this guy. And that's what he did. And then it was a close round in round 2. I think the judges were split on it, but it was a close, very competitive round in round 2. And eventually round 3 came around. Sean Woodson made a mistake. He found the takedowns, and then he submitted Sean Woodson. Now, I'll say this much. Sean Woodson does not have bad takedown defense. He's got good takedown defense. I don't see Charles Jourdain being able to take him down to the ground. I think Charles Jourdain has less than like a 20% takedown accuracy, and Sean Woodson has more than like an 80% takedown defense rate. And by the way, 3 of those takedowns were in round 3 against Julian Erosa. He got him down one time, but then Sean Woodson kept popping back up to the feet, and then Julian would take him down again. So I'd say one of those takedowns is really what counts. And then after that, it was one of those scenarios where when they're popping back up to the feet, they're put in a bad position, and that's why he continued to get taken down. I think he's got solid takedown defense. This should be a striking fight, but I think Charles Jourdain has the chin and he has the hand speed to make it a tough matchup for Sean Woodson. Maybe finding the KO. I think this will be a very fun fight to a decision. Maybe a 29-28, 30-27 for Charles Jourdain. I just think with the Canadian home crowd, he's going to go out there fighting like a madman, wanting to put on a show. And that's the style that he needs to go for in this fight. He needs to pressure Sean Woodson, put him off the back foot, because that's when Sean Woodson was not really succeeding, not having his way with Julian Erosa. Recent Charles Jourdain fight against Nathaniel Wood. Nathaniel Wood, I mean, he's quick, he's good, he's got good Muay Thai, and Charles Jourdain was landing some big shots, but Nathaniel Wood was targeting the legs pretty well, and that might be a weakness here. Sean Woodson might target the legs pretty well, but Nathaniel Wood was so damn quick. And when I look at a guy like Sean Woodson, who just is not slow, like I went from watching film of Sean Woodson saying, okay, this guy looks technically good. He can roll with punches pretty well. I mean, he had a boxing start to his career. I mean, he wanted to be a boxer first and then transitioned into MMA. Jeez. And then he's developed some solid takedown defense. I mean, it makes sense to pick Sean Woodson here, but he's just slow. And I'm watching, this is what I was getting at. I went from watching Sean Woodson versus Julian Erosa to Charles Jourdain versus Julian Erosa, and immediately Charles Jourdain is throwing heat, and he looks so much quicker in comparison. I think Charles Jourdain has been improving. I think the leg kicks would work pretty well from Charles Jourdain here, but he's not going to really rip them. He doesn't go to the leg kicks that often. I think this will be a fun scrap. It's always fun to see Sean Woodson in striking fights because he's so long and lanky compared to his opponents. How is he in the featherweight division? Insane to me. I think the dude's like 6'1". Crazy alien build, but I don't think he's got the speed to get this one done. I think Charles Jourdain, oh my God, Charles Jourdain is going to put the pressure on him and make it a very tough fight. And Charles Jourdain has not been knocked out once in his career yet, so I do like that on his side. I don't know if Sean Woodson's going to be able to knock him out or even knock him down at any point. Charles Jourdain, decision, 29-28 / 30-27. That's going to be the pick. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Brad Katona versus Garret Armfield. Fuck. I wanted to go with Garret Armfield. No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to. Look, I know he fought David Onama, and that was up a weight class on short notice, and that was an impressive performance. But personally, I think David Onama is not that damn good. Like, respectfully, he gets hit a lot. He doesn't have the greatest cardio, and he made massive mistakes against Nate Landwehr. Does he have good submissions, and does he have danger on the feet and on the ground? Sure. I'm talking about David Onama right now. Sorry. And Garret Armfield went out there and landed some very big shots on him in round 1. And then it came to round 2, and then it really tightened when it came to the live betting odds. And Garret Armfield was looking like he could potentially come away with this, but then he gets taken down and submitted by arm triangle in round 2. He then turns around and fights Toshiomi Kazuma. And I rewatched that fight, but Toshiomi Kazuma was already coming off a first-round knockout loss to Rinya Nakamura. I don't think Toshiomi Kazuma is that high level of a fighter. I picked Garret Armfield there. He looked pretty solid in that fight. I think he's got the better boxing in this matchup. Brad Katona is crazy. That's the best way to put. He'll push an insane pace. I like the fact that he can mix in the takedowns, and that's why I'm going with Brad Katona. But every time I'm saying it, I'm kind of, I'm hiding my face. I'm not very confident with it, right? The dude just is not technical. He's not technical. He can make it a scrap, but Garret Armfield is pretty good at scrapping. Garret Armfield has the better pressure. Excuse me, he's got the better power, not the better pressure. He's got the better power. He's got the better technical striking. Brad Katona's footwork looks horrible, but I like his ability to mix in the takedowns, and I like the fact that the dude's got a good chin, and he's just autistic. He's just autistically good at pushing an insane pace and just breaking his opponents. He's on like a 7-fight win streak if you're including the tough wins. Maybe not, with the UFC, but there's been 3 tough wins now. I thought he lost to Timur Valiev, and this is what I did want to get at. Timur Valiev, I thought won that fight, but the reason why he did pretty well against Brad Katona is because he mixed up kicks to the body very well, to the legs, and he used that to kind of slow down Brad Katona. Garret Armfield is going to box, not throw many leg kicks, maybe a couple knees in the clinch. We have seen him go 3 rounds before in the regional scene. I can't remember the name of the fighter he was fighting, but when it was hit round 3, he landed a takedown and kind of controlled the guy throughout the 3rd round. He didn't really look all that gassed, so that's a plus sign to see. But I think that Brad Katona's pace is going to be something different, and I just can't trust a guy like Garret Armfield who has been taken down throughout his career. Granted, it was up a weight class on short notice against David Onama, but even then, I'm going to have to pick Brad Katona, who has certain tools that I think can benefit him in this matchup. But yeah, don't get me wrong, Garret Armfield is the better striker. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, and that's Arnold Allen versus Movsar Evloev. Another underdog I was considering taking. It feels like every single card, or every single fight on this card, I was almost on the underdog at some point. I'm going with Movsar. Not confident. The value is on Arnold Allen's side here, in my opinion. Look, Arnold Allen has good takedown defense. He stuffed 9 out of 9 takedowns against Nick Lentz, right? What I do want to say is I do think one of those was, maybe not officially counted as a takedown, but he got Arnold Allen down to his knees. Pause. But he did. And what I don't like about Arnold Allen's takedown defense against a guy like Movsar Evloev, who has a Greco-Roman base, which is where you'll see them complete a lot of takedowns higher up on the body rather than around the butt. You'll see it up higher towards the shoulders, towards the chest, and they'll have some more throws worked in there. I think when Arnold Allen has stuffed the takedowns in the past, he gets into the clinch against guys like Nick Lentz, other fights in the past as well, that can allow a guy like Movsar Evloev to work in his Greco-Roman style of wrestling. I think his style of wrestling is a little bit different. Does he go for a Greco-Roman type of takedown every single time? No, but I like that that's in his arsenal, and I think he's a pretty good striker as well. And what I don't like about Arnold Allen at times is that sometimes I feel like he's a little bit hesitant. He needs to let his hands go, but he might be a little bit too hesitant with the takedown threat from Movsar Evloev. And Movsar Evloev has good striking. If you watch the Dan Ige fight back, and I know Arnold Allen is a better striker, he's quicker, maybe not as powerful, but he's quicker, and he had a very good performance against Max Holloway. A lot of people are very high on Arnold Allen now because of that performance, but I just think that Movsar Evloev's striking is enough to really, it's going to entertain the striking enough to where Arnold Allen might get taken down just because of the threat of the striking, and it might work and vice versa. Because of the threat of the takedown, Movsar Evloev might have more success with the feet. Max Holloway was landing some nice body kicks and some very nice leg kicks against Arnold Allen. In those areas, Arnold Allen's defense isn't that great, and Movsar Evloev has some nice kicks to the body and some nice leg kicks. He's got a nice jab. I know Diego Lopez's performance sucked, and he is coming off an ACL injury, I think, or some type of injury to his leg, which is not good to see. I just do think that he showed improvements consistently throughout his game outside of the Lopez performance, which was not a good performance. But before that, he was showing constant improvements in his game. And I know he's not the greatest wrestler. It's kind of interesting to me because he got taken down multiple times by Mike Grundy and popped back up. He's a very good ability to pop back up to his feet, but I don't think that's going to matter. I don't think Arnold Allen is going to be shooting takedowns in this matchup. I think Arnold Allen is the better striker here. But in a matchup where there is a massive takedown threat, it might be very close on the feet. I could even see Movsar Evloev having more success just because he's going to be a little bit more busy than Arnold Allen. If Arnold Allen goes out there and is as hesitant as we have seen him in the past. I do think Arnold Allen will be the better striker in this matchup. When he's on the feet, he probably will land the bigger shots, and he probably will win while it's on the feet. But I think Movsar Evloev will find the takedowns. If not, he's going to clinch up and have success in the clinch. But I do think his style of wrestling is annoying because once he finds one takedown on you, he's not going to let you go, and he's going to keep finding takedowns non-stop. And then eventually you'll find some control time. If not, he's having the type of takedowns where he's slamming his opponents down, potentially scoring a little bit better than just a regular old-fashioned double leg. You know what I'm saying? So Movsar Evloev is the pick. I'm not confident. I just can't trust Arnold Allen to go out there and really throw his hands. Although he has done it in the past, like in the Max Holloway fight, especially in round 5, he was really letting his hands go, especially at the end of round 5 too. But there's been performances against Sadiq Youssef. I'm not going to mention them all right now, where he just seems a little bit too hesitant for me, and I want him to throw with high volume in this fight if I'm going to trust him. And not only that, he is a southpaw too, which will make this kind of interesting to see how Movsar Evloev does with the southpaw. Maybe that's a weakness in his game, and maybe that's just a new type of striking style that just Movsar isn't really accustomed to. But Movsar Evloev is training at ATT, which is a pretty solid gym. He trains with Grant Dawson, Renato Moicano, he mentioned a couple other fighters. But he's also a very smart guy. I think this dude's like a fucking rocket engineer or something crazy. Like, he's a smart guy. I don't know if he's a rocket engineer. Don't take my word for that. But some very, like, smart type of job. He's a very smart guy. And I think he's going to be smart enough to have success on the feet and then work in the takedowns. I'm not super confident, like I said, because Arnold Allen probably has the power threat. He is more of ability to finish this fight. But I don't know. I think Arnold Allen, almost all of his most recent opponents have been strikers. Now he's facing a grappler. I don't know how that's going to work out, but he has stuffed so many takedowns from Nick Lentz and looked pretty damn good doing it. I'm not ruling out Arnold Allen. I think he's got a very good chance. I think this is going to be a very close decision. I'm going to say like maybe a split decision, Movsar Evloev, because he might not do enough with the control time, whatever it might be. I'm going to say split decision, 29-28, Movsar Evloev, but ultimately I do think that he is good enough striking to potentially work in some takedowns or vice versa. The takedown threat will give him success on the feet. Moving on to the next fight of the card, we have Chris Curtis versus Marc-Andre Barriault. I'm going with Chris Curtis here. He doesn't even need to be the better striker here, and this is going to be a striking matchup. He's going to stuff the takedowns if there are any coming his way, more than likely. I like the fact that he rips to the body. I think Marc-Andre has been open to the body, but not only that, look, Marc-Andre doesn't have the most reliable chin. Chris Curtis has good power, and he's pretty good at, getting hit for a little bit the first couple of rounds and then landing the big shot, either swaying the round in his favor or finding the knockout. We saw this against Joaquin Buckley. We saw this against Phil Haas, other opponents as well. I mean, he beat Brendan Allen. Same sort of thing. He's maybe not the highest volume fighter, but at times against Adolfo Vieira, he went out there with the high volume approach. I think Marc-Andre Barriault is going to be the high volume fighter. He might be rushing to make things happen. He might win the first. I'm going to pick him in the first round to win, but then when it comes to round 2, I think Chris Curtis is going to find a big shot. Maybe put him down on his ass. Marc-Andre Barriault is going to try to recover. He's going to be winning the majority of round 2, but since he got knocked down or there's a big moment from Chris Curtis, he's going to get round 2. And then when it comes to round 3, I think Chris Curtis is going to be a little bit more aggressive and finding big shots. Look, and we'll find a KO in round 3. That's where I was going with that. Look, I don't think Marc-Andre Barriault is bad. He might even be the more technical and the better striker, but he doesn't have the chin. And he doesn't have the power to really threaten Chris Curtis the way I would like him to if I was going to pick him in this matchup. And when I see him, having struggles against Eric fucking Anders, I'm going to pick Chris Curtis. And then he got knocked out in the first 20 seconds with the first combination Chidi Njokuani landed. And I know Chidi Njokuani is very powerful, but I think Chris Curtis has the tools to land the bigger shots here. He might be the better boxer, even more technical potentially, but I do think Marc-Andre Barriault will be landing a lot of volume and then eventually will be a little bit too confident and will get clipped at times. Yeah, I like Marc-Andre. He's a cool dude, actually. But I do think that there's moments where there's kind of like a chink in his armor and his defense is open and he can't get hit. I think Chris Curtis finds a knockout. Rounds 2 or 3, I'm picking round 3. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Mike Malott versus Neil Magny. I don't mind the Neil Magny side. As long as Mike Malott doesn't go out there and clinch like a fucking idiot, he'll win this fight. But there's a lot of fucking idiots that fight Neil Magny. Daniel Rodriguez winning the fight, seeming like he's going to win it on the feet in round 3, shoots a takedown or jumps guillotine. I can't remember now. What the fuck? Anyways, he ends up getting submitted, and it was his own fault. Phil Rowe, went out there, was winning on the feet, winning the striking exchanges, and then he clinches like a fucking idiot. I don't think Mike Malott is a fucking idiot, and he might be, but even then, he has a style where he kind of goes out there with the gunslinger mentality on the feet. He's got good submissions, and he goes for very big movements, similar to Dricus Du Plessis, even Michael Chandler. They always go for big movements. I think he's going to find some big shots and actually put away Neil Magny here. I know Ian Gary couldn't do it, but Ian Gary doesn't have the same type of pop, and he's not going to sit down on his shots as much as Mike Malott. I don't think Mike Malott is that good. He was getting tagged up by Mike Malott. Excuse me, he was getting tagged up by Adam Fugit. And like he shows some like technical parts to his game where I'm like, fuck man, you shouldn't be getting clipped by Adam Fugit at times. I just don't think Neil Magny has the power to really hurt Mike Malott. And also what I will say is I was expecting Neil Magny to be a lot bigger than Mike Malott. And when they faced off, Mike Malott was a lot taller than I expected. He's got the Canadian people on his side. I think he's going to go try to find an exciting finish, and I think he will get it done by KO, maybe submission. He's got high-level jiu-jitsu as well. We haven't seen him go 3 rounds, though, and that's what really does scare me is, hey, if this goes late, Neil Magny has proven 3-round cardio. He's got the better cardio more than likely, and he will clinch with you, and he will win in Neil Magny style, unfortunately. But Mike Malott, round 2 KO is the pick. I could see it round 1 as well. Moving on to the co-main event, we have Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Bueno Silva. I'm going with Raquel Pennington here. This was a matchup I had a pretty tough time predicting, and I was on the Bueno Silva side earlier because, hey, look, she finishes people, she has good submission, she has good power, and I started watching some film. Raquel Pennington is very good at clinching up with fighters. And Mayra Bueno Silva accepts the clinch against Manon Fiorot. This was the case against Holly Holm. This was the case, and then she found the ninja choke. Raquel Pennington has only been finished once throughout her career. She's very durable. I don't see her getting knocked out. She can take a damn good shot. And not only that, I don't see her getting latched up in a submission, maybe the same ninja choke. I think she's watched the film. I think she sees what's going to happen. I think she's, realizing this is her last chance for a title shot, and it just feels like it's going to happen. If I'm going to bet on someone to stink up this fight, it's going to be Raquel Pennington. And I'm getting the feeling this is going to be a stinker women's co-main event, respectfully. Bueno Silva is way too okay with just accepting the clinch, and that's how you lose against Raquel Pennington. And I feel like clinched control and just clinching for long periods of time in women's MMA gets scored a little bit better than it does in men's MMA just because less happen in women's MMA fights. And Mayra Bueno Silva sure can push a good pace, sure has been 3 rounds before. But against Manon Fiorot, getting outstruck, and Manon Fiorot was a good striker, but that was at the strawweight division. Now we're at the bantamweight division. And her only really notable win is against Holly Holm. Before that, sure, she beat Pandy Kianzad and Stephanie Egger, but I'd argue that those aren't really good fighters. And fucking Raquel Pennington beats them pretty clearly. Look, Pennington is durable. She's only been finished once in her career by Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes is the GOAT of the women's MMA. So, yeah, that's the way I view it. And I just think that it's going to be a lot of clinching. And I did want to bring this up. Raquel Pennington, I wasn't expecting her to be able to do anything to Ketlen Vieira on the feet. I understand Ketlen Vieira doesn't have the greatest striking defense, but she had her moment. She was landing the big shots. I got to give her respect for that. Ketlen Vieira was one of the better strikers in the division, in my opinion. I didn't think she got robbed against Holly Holm. I didn't. I thought Ketlen Vieira did more damage. But anyways, who cares? It wasn't a great fight. Fucking hell. I'm not really excited for this fight if you can't tell. But with that being said, man, Raquel Pennington, we're taking her at plus money. I'm not confident Mayra Bueno Silva finds a finish. I like Pennington's durability. I like her veteran, tried and true experience here. I'm going to go with a 3-2 very close decision where we are all napping, but then we wake up for the main event, which we will now move on to, which is Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis. I'm very excited here. This is a fun fight, and it's very interesting. I have had a very tough time predicting this fight. Probably the toughest time I've had with predicting any fight because I rewatch film and then I think something different almost every single time. Look, Dricus Du Plessis is a guy that I underestimated at times. I didn't expect him to go out there and beat Robert Whittaker. And he went out there and he beat Robert Whittaker and knocked him out in the second round. In the first round, he won that round. He's good. I'm excited for this matchup. I hate the people that are saying, well, these aren't the top middleweights of the world. How do you know that? How do you know that? They both had very impressive performances. A lot of us, if not all of us, were underestimating them going into their most recent matchups. They now proved that they can win these fights, and it didn't look like a fluke from either one of their ends. I'll tell you this much right now. If Sean Strickland rematches Israel Adesanya in 5 rounds, I'm picking Sean Strickland. I think he's got a very good style to beat Israel Adesanya, but not only does he just have a very good style, I think he is just a very good fighter. Same thing with Dricus Du Plessis versus Robert Whittaker. If it's a 3-rounder especially, if it's a 5-rounder, I might be a little bit more cautious, but I probably would pick Dricus Du Plessis, man. Honestly, he's just so damn dangerous, and I think he has underrated cardio. I am going to end up picking Sean, and I will tell you why, but I'm going to argue a little bit for the Dricus Du Plessis side. I think I can argue for Dricus' side very well. I have a whole video on that, and I have a whole video for me arguing for Sean Strickland. Let's get into Dricus Du Plessis. Look, he's powerful, he's unorthodox, and he can land big shots. He's got good power, man. He can knock out Sean Strickland. It's so damn possible here. He can also submit Sean Strickland. I think he can get Sean Strickland down. I think there are people on the Sean Strickland side, oh, Sean Strickland has great takedown defense, bro. Look, it's like over 80% throughout his career. Okay, bro. He got taken down by Abus Magomedov, right? That's not a good sign. Abus Magomedov is a guy that just lost to Barriault. Barriault beat him pretty handily, right? That's not a good sign. Really not a good sign. Dricus Du Plessis is just going to push an insane pace that no one has been able to stop yet. Robert Whittaker was a guy that was beating everyone in the division. And when you look at it and you see him getting knocked out and you see him losing the first round, you have to give Dricus Du Plessis a lot of credit. And what I like about Dricus Du Plessis in this matchup is he will throw power on every punch, but not only that, he's not just going to throw a couple of punches the way Jared Cannonier did against Sean Strickland. He's going to sit down on his punches more than Jared Cannonier did, but not only that, he's going to throw longer, more strung out combinations, which may have more effect against a guy like Sean Strickland. Because when you watch that Jared Cannonier and that Sean Strickland fight, when Jared Cannonier was landing his biggest blows, having the most success, he was going with the longer punch combination, sitting down in his shots a little bit more. But even then, I would argue that any of the shots that Jared Cannonier landed on Sean Strickland, if it was Dricus Du Plessis, it does not knock out Sean Strickland still. I think Sean Strickland's chin is being very underrated in this matchup, or potentially Dricus Du Plessis' power being slightly overrated. And I don't think it's as much of Dricus Du Plessis' power being slightly overrated. I think it's more of Sean Strickland's chin being underrated. Look, Sean Strickland has only gotten knocked out twice in his career by Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, and that was a spinning wheel kick to the temple. He was even then not fully flatlined, and it was Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos needed some follow-up shots to get him out of there. Alex Pereira's patented left hook landed clean on Sean Strickland. He didn't even see it coming because he parried a jab to the body, and then Alex Pereira, or maybe it was just a regular jab, but he parried, and he was not seeing it coming whatsoever, clipped him clean as hell, and Alex Pereira still needed some follow-up shots. Sean Strickland was recovering. I think he's got good chin recovery. We saw this in the Kamaru Usman fight when Kamaru Usman dropped him, and he recovered. He kind of shot in on takedown, did what Colby Covington was trying to do against Kamaru Usman in their first fight in round 5, and Sean Strickland survived. He put his head in a good position, wasn't clipped by any big shots, and made it to a decision. Was it the most impressive performance? No, but that was Sean Strickland 6 years ago. I think this was 2018, maybe even longer ago than that. It was such a long time ago. Sean Strickland's talked about it. He's such a better fighter now. Look, I'll say this much. That doesn't mean that I don't think Dricus can knock out Sean. I think if Dricus wins, he'll knock out Sean, and probably early, if I'm being entirely honest. And I can see it happening. Like Sean gets hit at times. Abus was landing some shots. Jared Cannonier was landing some shots. And Sean's not as good off the back foot. I understand that. But just because Sean doesn't have Sean O'Malley's type of pull counter with power off the back foot doesn't mean he's that bad off the back foot. I think he's kind of underrated at rolling with punches. He can take a good shot, man. Even against Abus Magomedov. Abus Magomedov went with a couple of more longer combinations than Jared Cannonier, sat down his punches a little bit more than Jared Cannonier did, and his defense held up. Did he get clipped a couple of times? Sure, but he rolled with the punches pretty well, tucks his chin pretty well. Essentially what I'm saying, but I think that Dricus Du Plessis' power might be a slight bit overrated, is in this matchup, is that I think that people are so adamant to say that the first shot that Dricus Du Plessis lands is flatlining Sean Strickland. And I know Dricus Du Plessis KO'd Robert Whittaker with the jab, but I'm just not confident that Dricus Du Plessis' punch, maybe, I mean, his cleanest punch is going to knock out Sean Strickland. I have no doubt about that, but I'm just not confident he's going to land super clean on Sean Strickland in the first place, because we have seen Sean Strickland's defense work really well against Israel Adesanya, who is one of the better strikers in the middleweight division. And as we know, Israel Adesanya does have some holes in his boxing game. I have always said that. I do think it was a stylistic nightmare, but just because it was a stylistic nightmare for Israel Adesanya doesn't mean that Sean Strickland all of a sudden sucks. Well, it was an easy fight for Sean because it's a style. No, he still showed some very good tools. He's got a very solid jab. He's got a very solid straight right. He doesn't let up on his pressure. And he's got a very disruptive style. And that's not the only reason why I'm picking him over Dricus Du Plessis. And I do want to mention this, if I'm going to really play the devil's advocate and get really nitty-gritty with the way I'm breaking down Dricus Du Plessis' ability to knock out Sean Strickland early. And I'm telling you, I will not be shocked one bit whatsoever if Dricus Du Plessis goes out there and smokes him with the first shot he throws and Sean Strickland's getting flatlined. I can understand that 100%. But Dricus Du Plessis is landing full power shots on Brad Taveras in rounds 2 and 3. And at most, he stunned them. Well, he did rock him at one point, but he's stunning him, and that's it. I want to see you flatlining Brad Taveras. I want to see you flatlining Derek Brunson in round 2. I know they threw in the towel. And I want to see you knocking out Darren Till in round 1 when you're landing 100 unanswered shots to the head if I'm going to be confident that you're going to be finishing Sean Strickland. That's all I'm going to say. And I think Sean Strickland has made massive advancements in his game. And I can agree that off the back foot, he's not as good. He's not as dangerous. That doesn't mean he's defensively horrible. And I know he can get clipped. I understand it. I do. And I do think, unlike a lot of Sean Strickland fans and the people that are picking Sean Strickland here, that Dricus can find the takedowns. I actually think he'll find a takedown early. But when it comes to the grappling exchanges, I don't like it for Dricus Du Plessis. And here's why. It's because when he fought Darren Till and when he fought Derek Brunson and he shot takedowns, he seemed the most fatigued. In round 2, you can see it. He's clearly a completely different fighter, already looking very sloppy. And I'm telling you right now, in round 2, the same Dricus Du Plessis that fought Darren Till, if that's Sean Strickland is stuffing some of those takedowns, and he's clearly winning that round. Not that Darren Till didn't win round 2, but I'm telling you this much right now. He's going to keep it on the feet for longer than Darren Till did. He has better takedown defense than Darren Till. And I'll get to the Robert Whittaker fight. I understand how impressive that was. I'm not going to downplay that. It was not a fluke. So impressive from Dricus Du Plessis. And it's just one of those fights where I got a nitpick to make my pick. And part of this is I am going off a feeling that Sean Strickland is going to win this fight. I just get that feeling. I feel like so many people are on Dricus Du Plessis. He feels like that public underdog once again. That's another just nitpick reason I'm throwing out there. Not a good enough reason to pick against Dricus Du Plessis. And I will say this much. Sean Strickland's defense is not as good as it is on the front foot that it is on the back foot. Jared Cannonier landed a lot more leg kicks when he was pressuring Sean Strickland and putting him off the back foot. Same thing with Jack Hermanson. And if Abus Magomedov can take Sean Strickland down and get his back, I think Dricus Du Plessis can do the same thing. And Dricus Du Plessis is going to be better at holding Sean Strickland down. My thing is, if Dricus Du Plessis is really going for a finish on the ground and he doesn't get it, that's where I can see him starting to fatigue and really making a mistake in a 5-round fight is where I was going with that. Right? And I see him in a lot of his interviews saying, well, maybe not a lot of his interviews, but in the countdown, I saw him saying there's going to be no need to see my championship rounds of cardio. I'm going to be TKOing him. And I could see him landing a big shot on Sean Strickland, maybe stunning him at some point and really unloading the tank and making a mistake and really fatiguing himself. And I'll say this much. Like I said, I think his cardio is underrated, and I do give him a very good chance to make this 2 decision. I think I give him a much better chance than a lot of the people on the Sean Strickland side. I don't see it as simple as Dricus is just going to fade after round 3. I see it as Sean Strickland's going to slowly work in his game plan a little bit more, and then it's going to be harder for Dricus Du Plessis to defend Sean Strickland's fucking weird style. That's how I see it. And I look at Dricus Du Plessis, I see him getting, pieced up a little bit by Darren Till in round 2, even round 3 even. Robert Whittaker landing a jab. I see Darren Till being able to pressure him a little bit in round 1, being able to pressure him like almost all around 2, right? Derek Brunson being able to pressure him in round 2. Like, there's been different fighters that have pressured Dricus Du Plessis, and I know he's always go, 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 but it's almost like in flurries, and I feel like we could see Dricus Du Plessis going out there, going with his flurries, going with his blitzes, and if they don't land, Sean Strickland just circles out and turns the pressure on Dricus Du Plessis, finds a jab a couple of times, and Dricus will explode. And I think if Sean continues to circle, and what I do like about Sean off the back foot, outside of, really tucking his chin, trying to roll with punches, and not really going for any crazy counters, which is another reason to why I don't think Sean Strickland might not get caught clean, and he might get caught clean. Actually, if I'm going to predict this fight, I'm saying that Sean Strickland will get caught clean at some point, but he will recover, and Dricus Du Plessis might blow his load, and that's honestly how I do see it. I think Dricus will find a big shot round 2. That will start to fatigue him a little bit. He'll maybe win round 3, win the start of round 3, I'm going to say that much, and then Sean Strickland will slowly start working in his pressure, start creeping up on him more and more. He'll steal round 3, it'll still be very close. He'll win round 4 a little bit more convincingly because Dricus will continue to fatigue as the fight continues to play out. Because if you just watch Dricus fight, I think a lot of you can agree with me, whether or not you're on the Dricus side or the Sean side, that Dricus throws almost all of his shots with all of his power. And that's maybe not even a cardio issue at that point. It's just going to tire your muscles. You're going to build up natural galactic fucking acid. And it might be a cardio issue. We don't even fucking know. And to people saying that Dricus Du Plessis, well, he got his nose fixture and, he's going to go 5 rounds of Dricus cardio now. That would be insane if that's the case. I mean, I'm not picking him to lose to anybody. I don't think that's the case, though. I'm not going to bet on that to happen because in round 2 against Robert Whittaker, he's clearly mouth breathing. And say what you want, oh, it's just the way that he breathes. Okay, fair enough. But if that's telling me anything, that's telling me that Dricus Du Plessis is not really maximizing his nose now or whatever the fuck. I don't even know how to phrase that. But I swear I've seen an interview of the guy saying, too, I didn't feel that much of a difference in round 2 against Robert Whittaker, but maybe I'm tripping. I swear I've heard the interview. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not going to even use that as a reason that I'm picking against Dricus Du Plessis. I'm just throwing that out as I swear I've heard that before, but maybe I'm wrong. Look, I think Sean Strickland will get clipped at some point. Now, I hate the fact that Sean Strickland's on the mic saying, this is going to be a war. Shakes on it with Dricus Du Plessis. This is going to be a war. We're going to do the man, whatever the fuck it's going to be. If Sean Strickland goes in there trading in the pocket with Dricus Du Plessis, I won't even be mad about my pick because there's almost no way I can predict that to happen because we have seen Sean Strickland say he's going to go to war with Jack Hermansson, say he's going to go to war with Jared Cannonier, say he's going to go to war with all these different fighters, and all it is it's a jab fest, and it's the same exact thing he does every single fight. And I think his version of a war is, hey, maybe if I feel comfortable in rounds 4 and 5 and Dricus isn't looking super fresh, I might go for the KO. I may, though. I might. I don't know. I see holes in both of their games. And that's the same thing with almost every single fighter. There's a hole in everyone's game. Dricus Du Plessis doesn't have the greatest striking defense. I don't think he's going to be able to stop the jab from Sean Strickland. But I don't know if Sean Strickland's going to be able to stop the onslaughts from Dricus Du Plessis. I was talking about the grappling. That's where I wanted to get to. Look, Dricus can get him down. And if Dricus submits him, I think he's going to have to land some very big shots. Sean is a black belt. And he was able to get back up to the feet very well against Abus Magomedov. And he was also very good. Well, not very good, but against Jack Hermansson, he stuffed a majority of the takedowns. Actually, all the takedowns. He wasn't taken down once. And there was one scenario where he stuffed the takedown and Jack Hermansson actually got his back. But he broke the grip very well, and he got out of that situation very quick. Now, if that's Dricus Du Plessis, a much stronger opponent, I don't know if he breaks the grip and Dricus can potentially get him down to the ground. I just don't know if I'm going to see him finding submission on Sean Strickland. If it happens, credit to Dricus Du Plessis. I'm excited for this fucking fight. I think Dricus is going to go out there and find the pressure early. He's going to work in the takedown early, potentially find it. Sean will eventually get it back up to the feet. I don't know if Dricus is going to go with the grapple-heavy game plan. I don't like that from him. Like I said, I think it can eventually gas him out. But Dricus Du Plessis, with the cardio that he had in the Brad Taveras fight, if he comes out there looking like that in round 3, I'm betting on Dricus Du Plessis to win that fight because that looked like a Dricus Du Plessis that could go another round. Maybe another 2 rounds. You know what I'm saying? Now, granted, as the fight goes later, his pop probably does come off of his shots a little bit because some of those shots that he's landing on Brad Taveras in round 3, if he lands those in round 1, I think he probably puts Brad Taveras away. I'm being straightforward because you can go back, rewatch that fight, and I'm just dumbfounded and looking at Brad Taveras as, wow, this guy's got a good chin. And I'll say this much too. Like, I was criticizing Dricus Du Plessis a little bit. Like, look, if I'm going to be super confident that you're knocking out Sean Strickland, and I mean super confident if you connect clean, and that is if you connect clean, like I was saying, because Sean Strickland has good striking defense. We've seen it against Jared Cannonier. We've seen it against Israel Adesanya and other fighters as well. But those are the 2 main names you have to bring up because those are the 2 highest level of opponents that he's fought outside of Alex Pereira. And I talked about that, right? Alex Pereira goes out there and knocks out Yuri Prohaska, and he goes out there and knocks out Donegi Ibena in kickboxing with bigger gloves, and Donegi Ibena has never been KO'd in his career outside of against Alex Pereira. Donegi Ibena is now the current Glory light heavyweight kickboxing champion. Anyways, I like Glory kickboxing, so I like to mention every once in a while. Anyways, resorting back to Dricus Du Plessis and Sean Strickland. Yeah, we were talking about grappling or power. Oh, yeah. Look, I'm just not confident that Dricus is going to hit the same as the fight goes later. I'm not confident that he's going to just absolutely flatline Sean Strickland. And I'll tell you this much. The pick from like Monday till Wednesday was Dricus Du Plessis, round 2 KO. And I start rewatching shit, and I just can't not remember the fights against Darren Till and the fights against, oh my gosh, fucking Derek Brunson. That's essentially what I look at when I see that fight. And that's why it's so damn hard for me to see, because, okay, we look at the Robert Whittaker fight, and I think this is a point that I haven't seen anyone bring up. This is interesting to see. Robert Whittaker got rocked by the same exact jab that Dricus Du Plessis landed on Robert Whittaker by Jared Cannonier in round 3. Now, Dricus Du Plessis' jab knocked out Robert Whittaker. It dropped him and then eventually led to the finish. I know that that's an immediate, fair enough argument to say, well, Dricus Du Plessis is better power than Jared Cannonier. That's just proof in the pudding right there. But Dricus Du Plessis almost pre-fired it. If you play Fortnite, you know. Like sometimes you're waiting for your opponent to do an edit and you pre-fire your shotgun shot and then it lands. You know what I'm saying? This was one of those scenarios where Dricus kind of threw it. I don't even think he knew Robert Whittaker was going in for a strike, and Robert Whittaker ran straight into that jab. Granted, a lot of power behind that jab, but the same thing happened against Jared Cannonier, except Jared Cannonier kind of landed in round 3 when Robert Whittaker was a little bit more fully extended, not directly running into his punch, but he rocked him, switching stances into the southpaw jab, and it rocked Robert Whittaker And he survived, obviously. And Robert Whittaker has good chin recovery. That's why I'm giving credit to Dricus Du Plessis. But I do feel like when Robert Whittaker is able to survive, he's able to kind of grab onto the clinch or work in some grappling. He did this against Yoel Romero pretty well. I mean, against Jared Cannonier, there was some clenching moments, and he did survive. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to underrate Dricus Du Plessis' power. I'll tell you that. He's one of the hardest hitters in the middleweight division. I'm just expressing the side of where don't underestimate Sean Strickland's chin. I don't think it's that bad. Round 3, we're going to start to see Sean Strickland really show some urgency. Midway through, he's going to start putting the pressure on Dricus Du Plessis after having his kind of selective moments of pressuring in the early rounds, getting clipped a little bit in round 2. He's going to go out there, selectively pressure, and then just start putting on the pace a little bit more. Round 3, round 4, putting on a big pace, and then round 5, putting on a massive pace. I'll mention this much too, on the Dricus Du Plessis by decision side. When Sean Strickland hurt Nasruddin Imavov, he allowed Imavov to clinch back up with him while Imavov was hurt, and Imavov was able to recover. So if Dricus Du Plessis is getting tagged up in the later rounds, maybe he clinches up and holds on to his lead. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'm excited for this card. I hope you guys are too. Let's make some money, and I'll see you in the next one, cut.